So, about a month ago, my aunt asked in this group conversation with my family if anyone had ever read or heard of the Celestine Prophecy because years ago my grandma had recommended it to her. And so that intrigued me, and I started reading the Celestine Prophecy after I ordered it and it arrived. And it was so good, I didn't want to put it down. And I was like, I gotta keep reading. There's more books. I gotta know more. It's about spirituality, and it's just, everything was adding up and made so much sense. Like, it was kind of mind blowing. So, I figured I'd give kind of an overview and, like, kind of maybe a review. I don't know. It depends on how the flow's going, but it starts off with the Celestine Prophecy, and that addresses the first 9 insights. And it talks about how there's a growing sense of restlessness amongst the population. And people are getting more and more frustrated, and they can't really put their finger on what's bothering them and where the sense of restlessness is coming from. But so it follows the main protagonist around. I don't think they ever got a name, which I guess is kind of like referring to how you could be the main character protagonist. But so they go on an adventure to Peru to learn more about the insights, and the first insight is all about synchronicity and how it's vital to notice the synchronicity rather than writing things off as mere coincidences, especially because there's no such thing as coincidences. That's just a coincidence kind of thing. No, that's not a thing. The book goes into great detail about that, and it talks about how there's a larger picture and a higher plan involved as we go about our lives. Each of us is a thread in a magnificent tapestry created by the divine. So, recognizing the coincidences help us to awaken spiritually, and these coincidences steer us towards a better, more meaningful life. So we got to keep an eye out for these synchronicities because they'll pop up, but if we don't want to miss out because the synchronicities leads to bigger and better things. So that leads us to insight number 2, which is the spiritual design of the world. And so this insight is about reviewing humanity's history through a new lens, one that recognizes how each point in our history is a step towards a better world. And humanity's history has all led up to this point right now where we are shifting from this materialistic view of the world to a perspective of spiritual design and understanding. And this design is focusing on where we're us being rewarded for helping others and fulfilling our soul mission. It's all about deepening our understanding of how the world and our universe actually works, and not to just be like, oh, the universe is this cold, dead, uncaring thing. It doesn't there's no purpose to all this. We're just here. Here we are. We're having our short existence. We're born, now we die. The end. That's not it. Leading to insight number 3, which is karma and giving. And so we've heard of the saying, what goes around comes around, and the universe very much embodies this and is very much alive. It's not dead and uncaring. No, that's not it at all. So when you give, you uplift others, and thus people will enter your life who exact the exact same way. So our outer world mirrors our inner world. So what happens to us in our environment all depends on how we're feeling in our inner world, our personality, how we treat other people, other things. As above, so below. So you want to think about your perspective and your actions/reactions, because how you act and treat others really does matter. It's because it's going to be right back to you. How you view the world matters. It always, always, always comes right back to you and is mirrored back to you. By helping others, by sharing helpful information, we tap into our intuitions and our higher selves, which serves to deepen and connect us to the divine. It's important to find ways to serve others and become this kind of agent of God and the divine, because we're conduits of source, of spirit, of the universe, of God, of, you know, the highest good, whatever you want to name it, whatever you want to label it. Labels are just, something that our language uses to help us communicate, so it doesn't really matter. It's the essence of the spirit, or whatever you want to call it, that matters. And so more and more synchronicity will reveal itself this way when we're acting as an agent of this entity of the highest good, of source, universe, God, divine, whatever you want to label it. And so we're going to attract more desirable life outcomes, experiences, and people this way. So it's really in our best interest to do this. Similarly, choosing manipulation, dishonesty, theft, things like this will reflect back to us. Life will treat us how we treat it. So this is the karmic design that provides us a choice of what kind of life we want. We aren't mere spectators, but we're active participants. So again, it really does matter how you treat the world and those you encounter and your perspective on things, because it'll just come right back to you. The universe always gives us what we are, not what we want. So if you want good things in life, like if you want people to treat you nicely and to receive things and be given things, you gotta embody that and give it out first so it can be mirrored back to you. The next insight, the fourth one, is all about control dramas. Since humans require energy and have forgotten how to tap into the divine energy that is literally all around us, we have needed to find a different way to get that essential energy. That would be the control dramas. These control dramas are fully involved with our egos, and they build us up at the cost of others. The control dramas manipulate others to siphon off their energy. Sure, we end up feeling energized this way, but the other party becomes drained. We compete unconsciously for the only energy we are open up to at this point in time, the energy flow between people. But there are other sources of energy that we learn about, because literally energy is all around us. I feel like it's kind of what Nikola Tesla was getting at about free energy and not having to rely on fossil fuels and coal for energy and all nuclear and all that. But I digress. So literally there's energy all around, but we focus on energy flow between people because that's all we know. And all of human conflict can boil down to this. The control dramas fall into 4 categories: intimidators, interrogators, aloof, and poor me. The intimidator gains energy through threatening and bullying. The interrogator gains energy through questioning and judging. The aloof gain energy from playing coy and remaining distant. And finally, the for me gain energy from playing up victimhood to get others to feel guilty and responsible for the other person that's acting poor me. So these control dramas have ran in cycles for generations, and they end up causing more of them if we remain unconscious and don't wake up. So, for example, interrogators can create aloof because they're on top of your case and be like, what are you doing, what are you doing, what are you doing? And then so in order to kind of protect the energy, because it's all constant kind of feeling like attacks, what are you doing, questioning, interrogation, they become aloof and distant, and they don't provide energy because, now you have to give them energy to get information from you. But we can break this cycle by catching ourselves as the dramatics begin to play out, and thus awaken and be more conscious and raise our spirituality and our being and become a higher source, tapping into that higher consciousness. So, insight number 5 is about gaining the spiritual connection. We can tap into this spiritual connection by centering ourselves in the present moment. We feel this divine connection lifting us out of the normal, perceived normal, higher consciousness couldn't be the normal, but what's normal for us at this point in time. And it boosts our senses. This connection deepens our feelings of peace, well-being, and happiness. And it just feels really divine because we're connecting to the divine. And we experience deeper insight, wisdom, and love. There is a breakthrough moment illustrating a deeper spiritual consciousness and source of energy that's possible for all of us. So it's really about this enlightening moment, this aha. It's like, oh, we don't have to siphon energy off of other people. There's literally energy all around us, and divine source wants to give it to us, but we're not open to it. We have to learn to open ourselves up to it. So it's really incredible. I just love this book so much. But Insight 6 is all about the life mission. This insight is about increasing clarity that we discover after our spiritual breakthrough in the Fifth Insight. With this clarity, the path we should take, our soul's mission, becomes all the more obvious and clear to us, and we receive strong intuition and guidance from consciousness, our higher self, source, whatever you want to label it, on how we should proceed with this mission. The thing is, we all came to this planet choosing to incarnate at this specific time and place for a reason. It wasn't a coincidence, it wasn't an accident. There was a reason to it all, and this reason is starting to become clear to us in the Sixth Insight. We won't necessarily have all the details or all the answers, but we'll receive this, kind of vague, kind of knowing, this intuition about our future destiny with this deep feeling of inspiration and fulfillment, like, yes, this feels right. You may not know, like, all the specific points of it, but you're like, I feel this. I feel the connection to it. Like, this just feels right intuitively. You won't, have all the rational, like, well, how am I going to do that? Blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, you have this sense inside of you, like, yes, this is it. This is my calling. And so we'll feel the calling, the pull, the urge to follow the path towards this future, and synchronicity will continue to light the way. So intuition is the seventh insight, and encouraged by our purpose and mission, more and more synchronicity will become apparent regarding our true calling. We will notice the intuitive guidance of our higher self. We will recognize the difference between intuition and the calculative thought provided from our ego. The ego isn't necessarily bad, it's just a lower density, frequency of thinking and being. Like, it's all about survival. And that has its place. It helped us survive in this 3D density, this 3D world. But there's another way, there's a higher way of being and living. So, these different thoughts, like the intuitive thoughts compared to the ego thoughts, feel different. There's a sense of knowing that comes from the intuition, even if there's no rational explanation for why or how. The intuition stemming from our higher self can appear suddenly, spontaneously, in the back of our mind, providing the clarity and the solution we need. And the intuition provides this perfect idea at the perfect time, but we need to keep our mind open to these intuitions. They can keep us in the flow if we allow them, rather than immediately disregarding them and shutting them down and be like, well, that can't happen, and being realistic, so to speak. That's being realistic is true to the reality that you've been living, but the thing is, your personal reality is formed by your personality and your thought beliefs, and by changing your personality and your perspective and your beliefs and your thoughts and your habits, you change your reality. So it's just like, you gotta keep an open mind, be open to the possibilities, because the divine source has greater plans in store for us if we're open to it. We always have a choice. We're never going to be forced to do something, but always it's going to feel better to listen to our intuitions and follow our life path and our mission. And that leads us to insight number 8, when giving reveals synchronicities. So, as previously mentioned, the third insight addressed how life reflects back what you put out. For that reason alone, we should live in with a giving nature. However, people often hold synchronicity for us, like they'll have synchronistic experiences, information, opportunities, but they have this vital information for us, but we can miss out on these opportunities by not having the courage to talk to others we encounter, making direct eye contact with strangers, others resembling people running into the same person multiple times. These are all signs of synchronicities and synchronistic experiences, but we often miss out by not taking up the opportunity, is addressed a lot in this book. And what needs to happen is we need to embrace the positive nature of the universe and uplift others by seeing their higher self come through their physical vessel. Because literally that's all our bodies are. They're our avatar, they're our physical vessel. We are a soul living, eternal spiritual being, a soul living a temporary human physical experience. So we know a lot more than we are aware because we're, unconscious and waking up. So when we see others as their higher selves coming through their physical vessel, it enhances synchronicities and leads the other people to providing crucial information and insight for us at our current point in our journey. So this leads us to the final insight in the Celestine Prophecy book, the first book, which is the Ninth Insight, and the Ninth Insight is all about humanity's ultimate destiny. So humanity is meant to uplift each other. You can see this in how it feels so good to be nice to one another and to share and to give to one another. You just get this warm, fuzzy feeling inside, and you can see it in how kids, they're born not knowing hate and, all these isms and belittling one another. They just are so genuine and loving, and they just see each other as equals and just other beings of love. And it's just instilled in through them, through society and all this about, all these labels and, separation and illusions. But, humanity really is meant to uplift each other, and by uplifting each other, it increases the spiritual transformation of our planet because it allows others to tap into the divine energy and the divine mind. In such a state, it becomes easy to quickly identify one's life mission and experience synchronicity. We will follow our true calling and our destiny rather than living someone else's life. The world will become free and peaceful and spiritually divine. All the problems will dissipate as the world, its people, and organizations become enlightened. In this world, individuals will be able to pursue ways of uplifting others for employment rather than the traditional jobs, as basic needs will become automated and provided for. A lot of times now you'll be like, oh, I need to do this job because, it's secure and it's stable and I went to school for it and I put in all this effort and I have this pension and retirement and I'm just a couple years away and, my parents told me I should and yada yada. There's all these reasons why you should do it, but you just don't feel it in your heart. You don't feel it with passion, and you don't feel like that's your calling. It just feels off. You shouldn't be there. You don't know exactly why, but you just feel like you should be somewhere else. And in such a society, this will no longer be the case. You'll be able to do what you're passionate about and feel your calling and be able to uplift others instead of just providing jobs, because all the basic needs will be provided for already. If you look at it, all the animals, they don't have to pay for housing. They don't have to pay for food. They get that naturally. It's free. They don't have to do anything other than work for, build their nest in a day, or, go hunt for food or gather food, nuts and berries. They don't have to go work a job and pay for it with money. No, it's just a given. It's out there in, the environment, in the universe, and they have access to it. So it's going to be a lot more like that for humans on the earth. And so eventually, this spiritual growth will lead to the reunion with the dimension of the afterlife. We will no longer require a death for a life review, because the veil between the two is ever shrinking. There's lots of people talking about, the death experiences when they were dead for a brief moment and they come back, and there's all these people talking about ghosts and spirits and all that. It's because the veil is shrinking, and it won't always be separate. We'll be able to contact and communicate with other souls a lot easier as we're becoming more and more spiritually aware and enlightened. But that will lead us to the 10th insight, but that's the last insight in the Celestine Prophecy. So that's all I'm going to talk about in that one, and we're going to move on to the next book, the 10th Insight. So the 10th Insight this book addresses it 100%, is all about guidance from heaven and the afterlife. So, as our consciousness grows, we will recognize the significance of the cycle of life and death. It's a very important process because we are able to, review and expand and reflect on our life after we die. And we get to look at all the things that we did right and all the things we missed out on, we could have done better, so on and so forth. So, the afterlife is a very real location, but it exists at a higher frequency than our dense earth bodies. However, as spiritualization continues to grow, the veil that separates these two realms will begin to disperse, allowing us to gain new insight. Those who have passed away are not really gone. Energy can never be destroyed. It merely changes form and shape. So the deceased are freed from their dense physical vessel, allowing them to experience a higher frequency, their soul. These souls wish to assist their loved ones remaining in the physical realm, but the frequency difference can make it difficult. They also wish to resolve karma that they have with loved ones after experiencing their life review. The life reviews often showcase missed opportunities and provide clarity about the life, person, and mission that the person was chose to incarnate on Earth for. Before birth, we obtain a vision of the potential life, the good we can do, the insight we can share, and the ultimate purpose of our incarnation. This intention and purpose is clear when we choose to incarnate, and once here in these dense three-dimensional bodies and this dense three-dimensional realm, we often forget our life purpose. As we proceed through life, synchronicity and intuition work to wake us up to our true calling. Sometimes we wake up to it, sometimes we don't quite wake up to it. But life holds a higher meaning and purpose, and as people consciously begin to live their lives and their life purpose and their life meaning, it will accelerate their lives and the world's progress as a whole. So that's all on the 10th insight in summary, and we'll move on to the 11th. So the 11th insight is all about the power of prayer and the prayer field. So many people pray in the world. They obviously believe that it has power and there's a purpose to it, but they don't necessarily recognize the true power of prayer and our thoughts. So our thoughts and prayers have their own fields influencing our environments. This is because they're energy forms, and as energy forms, they hold tremendous power with what we experience. Think of them as self-fulfilling prophecies. What we believe influences our reality, and thus what we believe becomes our reality. So set your intention and be mindful with the thoughts, prayers, and energy you send out. Think about placebos and how when they have something that doesn't really, isn't supposed to do it, it's just a dud, a fake, it actually heals them. Think about people who miraculously heal from these detrimental diseases because they believed they would, or those whose health immediately becomes worse upon hearing an unpromising diagnosis and believe that death is imminent. Thoughts influence and create our reality. If our prayer fields hold this much power on our own lives, our individual prayer fields, think about that, how much power they hold, then imagine what the collective prayer field of the world can do. Think about us joining forces, like how there have been a lot of group meditations, and I think there was a study of, I think it was around 30 people, and they were meditating all together on peace and love and harmony and all that, and then crime and all that went down in that city. They're all in that one city. I don't remember the specific one. If I can find the experiment and all that, I'll link it below. But yeah, just think about if we all start raising our vibration and holding out these thoughts and prayer fields of peace, love, and harmony, positivity, and all that, think about what it will do for the world and what kind of reality it'll create for the world. It's just mind-blowing. But then that's all for the 11th insight, and we're going to move on to the 12th. So, the last book in the Celestine Prophecy series is about the 12th insight, the art of decision. And so the 12th insight is all about the divine presence within. So we recognize with this insight how the divine dwells within us. We don't need to look into the outside world to find the divine. The divine can always be found because it exists within us. Yes, each of us is an independent, sovereign being with our own personality and gifts, but we are actually part of the divine's consciousness of love. We may shine brightly, but we are a mere thread in the divine's expansive tapestry. We need to rise above thoughts of fear, control dramas, and bad habits as they block us from our connection with the divine. Think about it, because we talked about in the 11th how our prayer field and our prayer and our thoughts is so powerful, and it will, bring to us what we believe. If you're in a negative state of fear and all that, you don't want to be that powerful and have it ultimately manifest for you. Like, let's just say for whatever reason you had this thought where it's like, oh, I could be struck by lightning. If you were always in that divine connection with God, Source, the highest creator, think about that. That means instantaneously you're going to be zapped by lightning. You don't want that. So that's why the divine will automatically cut you off when you're not in the right state of mind. But since we're all part of the same consciousness, we need to rise above the thoughts of fear. And then we need to, because all these thoughts of negativity and all that, they are inhibiting us and they disrupt our flow, which leaves us disconnected, frustrated, and anxious. And since we don't like feeling these emotions, we end up avoiding it through distracting ourselves with compulsive activities such as binge watching, shopping, addictive behaviors, gossip, etc. All these activities are there and put in place by our ego to distract us from this disconnection from the divine. By transcending all of these distractions, it allows us to connect to the divine again and synchronicity. Once in this divine connection, you'll feel the flow of your life purpose and you'll gain awareness of your ego's attempts of distraction. The ego, it tries to look out for you in the best way that it can. It's not necessarily bad, but it's not necessarily the way you should live your life. It serves a purpose by helping you survive in the 3D world, but we're shifting consciousness into higher levels, and so it's not as needed anymore. We need a new set of skills and thoughts and beliefs and perspectives and insight. So, the ego's nice and all with its attempts, but we don't need it. We can gain ever greater intuitive knowledge about our own individual truths by overstepping and seeing past the ego's illusions and distractions and tapping into the divine. We'll recognize how the divine assists us, and aligning to this divine design will allow us to integrate all of our insights and grant us higher consciousness in living. So it's really important that we just start embodying this higher consciousness, because it's only going to serve to help us and the world as a whole. And when we help others and the world, it'll be reflected right back at us. So thanks for listening, guys. This series, I did not want to put it down at all. It felt like everything was adding up way too much, in aligning with other things popping up in my life. The fact that my aunt just kind of casually brought it up, I felt a calling to read the book. And once I read the Celestine Prophecy, I'm like, oh my gosh, it makes so much sense why now, and I want to read all the other books. And then as soon as they arrived, I did not want to put them down. Seriously, I read each of the books within 24 hours once I got them. I love the series. So much insight. I'm sharing them with my mom right now. She just finished the original first book, The Celestine Prophecy, and it's now just starting the 10th. It's such a good series. I recommend looking into it if you're interested. If not, maybe it's not the right timing, divine plan and timing of God and Source and Creator, so everyone's on their own part of their journey, but I recommend checking it out, especially if you want to get some new insight, get a new perspective. But again, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Be blessed, everybody.